So let's get to the big issue that I'm pretty certain is going to move the national pulse today. And that is going to be the issue of AfriForum and their latest position regarding regarding Julius Malema. Did I say Donald Trump? No, it's certainly not meant as Donald Trump, but definitely Julius Malema, right? So they have lots to say. Let's pick up on this issue here. AfriForum and the Southern African Agri Initiative, which is SAAI, I suppose you'd call it a SAI, right? They've requested that countries worldwide impose targeted sanctions against Julius Malema. That's what they're requesting. Now, why are they doing just that? Let's find out. In fact, with Ernst van Zyl, the head of public relations at AfriForum. Ernst, appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Now, there's lots, of course, you know, Julius Malema, kill the boer, kill the farmer. Many people talk about it. You have your own positions on this. And yes, there was a Human Rights Commission ruling on him just about a week or so ago. But tell me what you're trying to achieve here. What do you want to do?
Right. So particularly with this campaign, you're 100% correct. There's many court cases and different campaigns and stories attached to Mr. Malema. But with this campaign in particular that you're referencing here is a call from AfriForum and SAI for further international repercussions for Julius Malema for, among other things, inciting violence against minorities in South Africa. And this comes after many years of Julius Malema getting away with hate speech with impunity through chants like kill the boer, kill the farmer, a chant that the South African Constitutional Court disappointingly said that they don't even want to hear the case regarding it, where I think the Constitutional Court let minorities down. But on the other side, that's exactly why AfriForum is now taking this matter internationally, because the fight doesn't end there.
So help me understand this. I mean, the Concord feels that they don't need to rule on this issue, but there's been other issues, the Human Rights Commission ruling on certain issues of hate speech last week. Isn't that exactly what South Africa is? We're a constitutional democracy. Some things you personally win and some things you lose, but respecting the rule of law is paramount to the way we do business and the way we live our lives. Why would you feel there's a need now to go elsewhere?
Right. Well, this is not a disrespect of the rule of law in South Africa. This is simply a stance from AfriForum regarding a chant which very clearly is hate speech. When it comes to the chanting that are about kill the boer, kill the farmer, inciting violence against people based on their identity, AfriForum feels very strongly here that this is, in fact, a case of hate speech and that it does endanger people's lives. If something endangers people's lives, you do what you can to fight it. And this is AfriForum doing what we can after we've already exhausted our domestic options in regards to putting an end to this type of incitement.
So who are you approaching and what are you asking them to do?
Well, at the moment, we're not approaching someone specifically. We've now just revealed and published our Malema Dossier, which is a document that was set up or created by AfriForum's research department and also in collaboration with our private prosecution unit under the leadership of Harry Nell. And this document outlines the entire history of Julius Malema, gives a comprehensive account of, among other things, Malema's hate speech, his incitement to violence, the serious allegations of corruption against him, and examples of his statements in support of terrorist organizations and terrorist acts. And this will form the foundation of our international campaign to demand and put pressure on for more consequences internationally. One of those would be an example, something that's already happened, was when the UK government this year denied Mr. Malema a visa based on the fact that they, and in their own words, his rhetoric that incites violence against people, and that's not something that is conducive to peace in their own society, so they deem them not welcome there. And that's just an example of the type of actions that we'd like to see. So there's more to come of that, hopefully.
All right, but this sounds like if I can call it this, an international blackballing of a person. I mean, what would be the end goal around this? I mean, what's your bottom line to this?
Well, the angle is that this is an individual who incites violence and hatred, racial hatred in South Africa, and he's not facing the consequences that he deserves for that type of rhetoric and that type of incitement of violence that destroys lives and endangers people. There needs to be consequences to put a stop to it.
Now, I mean, let's be fair. There are many people who call in on this radio station who do not agree with Julius Malema at all. They don't agree with the stance of kill the boer, kill the farmer. They feel, yes, it may have had relevance at a certain time. It may not be relevant now, but that's another question. But do I get a sense here that you're saying, since you're not happy with the way he's been judged or in South Africa, in fact, de facto, you want him tried internationally?
Well, not happy is putting it very lightly. I think it's outrageous that someone who calls for the murder of people based on their skin color gets away with it and can continue doing it without any consequences. I think that's unacceptable.
Now, there's been lots of conversations about that, which is that if and we know what the ruling was around kill the boer, kill the farmer. And I know you voiced your displeasure, but certainly that's the ruling as it stands now. I mean, in essence, you are saying I want him to be tried and convicted elsewhere.
I want there to be consequences for someone that incites violence against people based on their skin color. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is that, which and I've certainly heard the EFF position on this one, to say if it was meant to be literal, I'm talking about kill the boer, kill the farmer specifically, right? Then in fact, let's call it the strike rate of people being killed because of that outburst is actually uselessly poor. It's a non-event. It hasn't happened. So where's been the response to that?
That's not the standard for incitement of violence. The standard for incitement of violence is the inciting of violence, not whether the amount of people that go through with it. And then you have to answer the question of when Julius Malema was asked under oath during his court case to pledge that he will never call for the slaughtering of white people. Why did he refuse to make that pledge if this is only metaphorical and not literal?
Okay, I hear you, and again, I mean, some may debate that because often enough groups like yours have actually argued that his pronouncements have been the direct cause of farmers being killed, and the flip side has been the argument to say the numbers just don't tally. I'm talking about the action that follows a pronouncement, and I know what you've said.
There have been far murder cases that have been directly linked to this chant, with attackers chanting this chant at the crime scene, and this chant being linked to those crimes. At what point then is it? At what point does it become something that you should be taking a stance against? It seems like if there's 5 cases or 10 cases, you think that's not enough, but it has to be 50 or 100 cases before you are allowed to take a stance against it. I think calling for the murder of people based on their race is wrong, whether that be one case linked to it or 50.
Let's just turn this thing sideways in terms of the position of organizations like AfriForum before regarding South African farmers and the lobbying that has taken place in the USA. I mean, what for you has been the lessons learned around that?
Well, the lesson learned is that international pressure has a major effect, and that first you have to try to solve the problem domestically, as AfriForum have done. But when the government gives you a cold shoulder and tells you that they are not going to talk to you or that they refuse to talk to you, then international pressure is a viable and legitimate way of getting the government to come to the table to talk about an issue that's very serious or to acknowledge an issue. We've seen that in 2025, where the South African government has been forced to confront issues that up until this point they just out and out refused to even talk about. And now they at least are out to the open talking about a lot of these issues, even if their response is inadequate. That's a positive lesson in regards to international pressure works. And if you can't solve something domestically, then that is an avenue that you can use to bring about change in your country.
What about the sense that specifically what's happened in the USA, in fact, has let the genie out of the bottle? That means you may be justified in certain points, but it's come to a position where there are elements of the lobbying that you now can't control. I mean, there's not a day that Donald Trump pronounced it on South Africa. I mean, some of it may be true, but not everything is true. And now you can't control that narrative.
Well, the issues that the United States has mentioned are not issues that AfriForum made up. These are issues that are real and issues that the South African government refuses to address. So if you look at the 4 the 4 criteria that were given from the United States to the South African government in order the criteria to normalize relations, none of them have been addressed. The one was that the South African government and the president specifically needs to condemn the chant "Kill the Boer." That hasn't happened. They need to prioritize farm murders by giving it the category of priority, including it under the category of priority crimes, which also include gender-based violence and rhino poaching. There needs to be a commitment from the South African government that there will be no expropriation of people's property without fair and market-based compensation, which they also haven't done. And now this week, the president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, has praised the land confiscations that happened under the dictator Mugabe in Zimbabwe, which is also just flying in the face of that requirement. And then the last requirement that the United States gave South Africa to normalize relations is that there needs to be an end to race-based and discriminatory policies in the country, which they have also doubled down on. So these are things that are between the South African government and the United States. AfriForum is urging the South African government to address these issues because the United States says that they need to be addressed and these are real issues. But the South African government has refused up until this point, so that's on them for whatever consequences comes from their ostrich strategy of just putting their head in the sand and hoping that the problem goes away.
Okay, I want to pick up on the issue of social cohesion and South Africa's sovereignty, which we'll do right after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, you know what? I don't have to even ask for you to call in. You're already wanting to call in. Many people doing so. Others sending out WhatsApp comments. But you can do that right away. To call in live, 086 000 2032. And then WhatsApp text messages or voice notes, 30 seconds max, please. 0614 104 107. And you can tweet using the hashtag The National Pulse by tagging SAfm Radio and tagging me as well. With me, of course, Ernst. He's part of AfriForum, their spokesperson, and with the news that AfriForum and the Southern African Agri Initiative, SAAI, have confirmed they now have requested countries globally to impose targeted sanctions against Julius Malema for the use of the chant "Kill the Boer." Let's conclude with this issue, and so I'm just going to pick up a quote from the political analyst Renee Westhuizen in The Citizen, and she's saying that escalating this issue to international level risks undermining South Africa's sovereignty and legal autonomy. And Renee continues saying this action may inadvertently exacerbate existing societal divisions rather than promote social cohesion. And over-reliance on external punitive measures, such as sanctions, establishes a dangerous precedent that will undermine South Africa's judicial integrity, end quote. Right, your comment on that?
Well, there's a very simple comment when it comes to particularly societal harmony and cohesion. There's a major threat to that, and the major threat is politicians who say things like all white people are criminals and should be treated as such. That's Julius Malema, his direct quote. He also says white people cannot be victims in his eyes in South Africa. That's what he said during his court case. He tells his supporters to be killing machines. That is someone who is a threat to cohesion and harmony and peace in a country, not those people sounding the alarm against that person or the people that says the organization saying that person must not be getting away with this type of rhetoric are not the problem. The person that is making those types of statements is the problem. That's like blaming the firefighters for the fire.
Okay, just the last thing on this. You know that we've had this national debate that's now just started, and I don't mean the National Pulse. I mean this conversation that should have started a few days ago, and there's been a big uproar about the pluses and the minuses around this, around that. Would that be something that you would pick up on there to say, come on, let's have a conversation about just understanding where we are as a people outside the party political space?
There absolutely needs to be a real national dialogue and a dialogue between groups and individuals. But the national dialogue TM trademark is not the place for that. That's a government-captured or a party-led, or ANC-led more specifically endeavor. And I don't think that's going to be the right environment for this type of conversation. There needs to be a real dialogue that's not captured by any political party, whether that be the ANC, DA, whatever. There needs to be a dialogue that's citizen-led and organization-led, not with the fingerprints of
so
the
if that is the
ruling
case,
party.
and let's conclude with this, then what is stopping AfriForum from driving that real dialogue with different stakeholders of opposing views, as was done in the build-up to the 1994 first election?
Right, well, I'll give you some insider information. We are currently gathering those types of voices that do not see the national dialogue in caps lock as the right venue, but who want to have a dialogue. We are making sure those people are finding each other, and we will be driving a dialogue of our own later this year, and it will not cost $7 million for the people of this country. You can rest assured about that.
Dialogue of our own, which is the own. Ernst van Zyl, appreciate your time here, spokesperson for AfriForum. This in relation to the call from AfriForum and the South African Agri Initiative, effectively to get Julius Malema sanctioned around the world, globally.